Why, hello there, friend. My name is Kevin Zen, and this past May I just graduated from Yale with a degree in East Asian Studies. Over the last 3 years, I've made over $60,000 as a private college consultant and writing tutor. In this two-part series, I'll be sharing my personal college acceptance story. I'll walk you through my attitude towards college during high school, how I tortured myself during my junior year, personal drama that ensued during my senior fall, how I created my college list, why I chose Yale, and last but not least, whether everything I suffered was even worth it. This will be a long one, but it's gonna be a good one. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. The first thing that you should know about me is that I went to a boarding school. In fact, it's arguably the best school in America, but a lot of people haven't even heard of it. There it is! Good old PEA, Phillips Exeter Academy. Here's what you need to know about Exeter. There's 1,000 kids total, and it's located in, you guessed it, Exeter, New Hampshire. All our classes are Harkness style or discussion-based learning. We have some pretty famous alums like Roxanne Gay and Mark Zuckerberg. And last but not least, every year about a third of the graduating class go on to top 20 colleges. This includes the Ivies, but also great liberal arts colleges like Williams, Amherst, Swarthmore, Pomona, Harvey Mudd, as well as excellent tech schools such as Carnegie Mellon and MIT. Believe it or not, but in 2016, Columbia accepted more than 30 students from my class. Now that you know the backstory, I can tell you the real story, the front story. When I first set foot at Exeter back in 2012, I felt this immense pressure to succeed, especially as a first-generation low-income student. I believed that if I wasn't trying my hardest to get into a top-tier Ivy League school, I was wasting this once-in-a-lifetime golden opportunity. I knew that there were a lot of kids who would give an arm and a leg just to be in the same position that I was. So the predominant emotion that tormented me during those high school years was guilt. I'll admit that this guilt didn't really sink in until sophomore year, which is when all of a sudden, it felt like everyone and their mom was talking about college admissions at Exeter. Up until that point, I was a pretty regular kid. I was interested in girls who weren't really interested in me, played a lot of video games. You get the picture. At the end of 10th grade, I kind of woke up and I realized that I had this opportunity to go to a really great college, but only if I was able to land those key leadership positions at Exeter and also get stellar grades. So over the summer, I kind of mentally prepared myself. Then I returned to Exeter in the fall of 2015 and went absolutely ham. Exeter's kind of weird because we have this 11.0 GPA scale. An 11 is an A, a 10 is an A minus, a 9 is a B plus, and so on. Nobody graduates with a perfect 11. It just doesn't happen. Just to give you a frame of reference, the top 5% of our class, considered early cum, has an average GPA of about 10.5. Before my junior year, my GPA was hovering around a mid-9, which is good. My junior year though, I was hitting 10 4s, 10 6s, never before seen personal academic achievements. In the end, this worked out perfectly, since it's rumored that some schools omit your entire first year's GPA at Exeter, since they know how difficult the adjustment is. But I didn't learn that until after I graduated, actually. This brings me to an important point about GPA and college admissions, because regardless of whether or not you attend a boarding school, colleges like to see this improvement over time. So if your GPA didn't start off so hot in 9th grade, but you've been steadily improving over time, colleges really like to see that. This communicates resilience, because despite more challenging courses, you're actually performing better. Likewise, if you started off strong and you're decaying over time, this tells colleges that you're a supernova, essentially someone who burns out under pressure. Back to junior year though. What a grind, man. Imagine putting your brain in a blender for 9 months. That's what the 2014 academic school year felt like to me. Let me walk you through a typical Tuesday. All right, so typically you'd wake up around 9, you'd have classes for 1 to 2 hours. Around 10:30, there's a mandatory assembly, which I almost always skipped. I would just sneak into my friend's dorm, pull up the covers, and just take a nap. After assembly, there was more class, lunch, more afternoon classes, short breaks here and there, and then sports block, which ran from 4 to 6. So yeah, I mean, sometimes we'd have free blocks here and there, which I would use to do homework and sleep. I was perpetually sleep deprived. I'm just not that smart of a human being. So major assignments like a 5 or 6 page paper could take me 10 to 12 hours. But writing was honestly fine. Guys, the worst kinds of assignments were science tests. Physics, biology, and AP chemistry were literally the bane of my existence. Guys, I had this one biology teacher, Mr. Chisholm. This man would hand us 2 sheets of printer paper, totally blank, for our exam. No multiple choice, no fill in the blank, nada. I will never forget until the day I die. This man made us draw a diagram of a nephron in a kidney from memory and explained why it was crucial for regulating blood pressure and plasma osmolarity.
Bruh.
This is a regular biology class. Oh my god. To study for this test, I basically memorized 60 pages of our biology textbook and trained myself to draw a dozen nephrons from memory. In addition to half a dozen other organ structures, because you never knew what Mr. Chisholm was gonna put on the test. Those kinds of tests happen every 2 weeks. Now imagine you have 5 classes like that. Welcome to Exeter. All right, maybe I'm being a little overdramatic. Not all classes at Exeter were that intense, I will admit. Mr. Chisholm's biology and Mr. McConnell's US history class. 2 hardest classes I've ever taken in my life. You guys made my Yale education look like a joke. Back to the Exeter schedule. After dinner, there were all sorts of club activities. Tuesday nights, I had breakdance practice from 7 to 8 p.m. Once that finished, I would amble over to the music building and bang on those old Steinways for another hour. Then I would return back to my dorm and start doing my homework, which usually took minimum 2 hours, although rough nights could take 4 to 6 hours for homework. Cooper, can you relax and record it? You're being a little noisy. This continued into senior fall, which was frankly not as bad as junior year. I made some smart decisions, decided to take some easier classes because I knew I had to balance between school and college apps. At this point in time, Princeton was my #1 dream school because they had this amazing international relations program and a huge dance community. Princeton's breakdance club, Simpo, at one point they had over 50 kids, and I know they even got funding from the school to go teach workshops at Atlantic City during the day and just party at night. I applied to Princeton through QuestBridge, which is a nonprofit that helps first-gen low-income students get matched with top schools. The way that QuestBridge works is you fill out one application, then rank all the schools you want to get matched with. And if you don't get matched with your top choice, they go down your list until you do get matched. While I could have written more than one school on my list, I decided to just put Princeton down, which in hindsight may not have been the best move strategically. But the reason I did so is because at Exeter, there's this kind of unspoken policy that if you apply to a school with less than a 10% acceptance rate and you get in, you should go. This in turn improves everyone's chances collectively as a class to get into more schools. And because everyone only applies to one school early, it felt kind of unfair if I just applied to many schools early. It would mean the sole purpose of applying through QuestBridge was to get through this early action loophole and beat out my peers. That just didn't feel right to me. While I was waiting for my decision to come out, I saw quite a few of my friends, especially kids in my dorm, get into top schools like Dartmouth and UPenn. I genuinely felt so happy for them. Yes, part of me was also jealous, but not because they were going to a great school and I wasn't. I was just envious that their senior year was done. They didn't have to try anymore. Meanwhile, I was still sprinting the marathon, it felt like. I actually found out about my own early action decision in China. My sister and I had just flown 20 hours from JFK to Guangzhou to see our dying aunt. She had been battling cancer for at least a solid 2 years now, and honestly had a really great run. During those final months, she visited dozens of countries and basically just balled out. She lived a really rich life. But yeah, I mean, that flight to China was basically the last time we knew we would ever see her. Obviously, we had no cell signal during the flight, so the moment we landed, I checked my phone. We regret to inform you that you've been deferred. Needless to say, I was a bit bummed out, but at least I still had a shot. We only spent a few days in China, and honestly, I only remember 2 things. The first is visiting my grandparents' grave. It was quite an event since my sister was there, my mom was there, my aunts were there, my cousins were there, my cousin's kid was there. The last time we were all together to pray to our grandparents was at least a decade prior. But before we continue, let me tell you a thing about these Chinese funerary rituals. When you go pray to dead family members, you gotta bring some food, some wine, and paper stuff. I'm talking paper cars, paper phones, paper laptops, paper cash. You can buy all this stuff cheap from the street vendors. Then when you arrive at the cemetery, you pull out the food, take out the wine, pour it on the grave. Finally, you burn all the paper stuff. The idea is that the smoke will rise, and this way my grandma and grandpa can use all the stuff we burned in heaven. Anyways, the reason that I'm telling you this anecdote is because that day I sincerely believe that I got into college because we went ballistic on the paper burnings. Filled a trash can full of this stuff and just kept the fire going non-stop. Meanwhile, I was like a pendulum, just bowing back and forth. Oh ancestors, please bless me with your divine powers. All this sweat and just like dust on my forehead. I didn't care. There you have it, Chinese funerary rituals as told by a Yale East Asian Studies major. The other thing that I remember from China that trip was much sadder. My aunt's final last words to me. We were never like super duper close, but she always treated me kindly, and I'd still consider her one of my favorite family members. You know, the type of person who's, it's really hard to upset them and really easy to make them laugh. When she was dying of cancer, and I visited her in the hospital, she was all curled up like a shrimp. Her back, a scythe. It was honestly one of the saddest things that I've ever witnessed. My aunt, she'd get into these pretty intense wheezing fits, and she'd just cough, not be able to speak for hours because she was like that weak. But on one of my last days in China, she pulled me close. On that afternoon, she had some strength, and she said, "Lo Fu Zai, Hu Doi Min Jing, Wo Lam, Wo Hui Min Do Le Ge Ba Yi Zhi Rong." Tiger Boy, which was my Chinese nickname. I'm sorry, but I don't think I'll be able to make it to your high school graduation. So yeah, that winter break, I worked really hard on my college applications.